I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was my first day of college. I was sitting in my very first class, Psychology 101. I wanted to be a business major, so I thought if I can figure out why people think the way they think, then that somehow will help me. I thought that should be step one. So I was there in my class. Sitting in my desk, the professor walked into the classroom and said, "Today, each of you will have an opportunity to write your own obituary." I remember thinking, what a morbid assignment that is. About that time, one of my classmates piped up and said, "Hey, why would I bother writing my own obituary? Let them say whatever they want to about me long after I'm gone." It was about that time that the professor started to tell the story of this man, Dr. Alfred Nobel. Dr. Nobel was a very well-known chemical engineer. He was a businessman, he was an inventor, and he was a philanthropist. He was very well known for his time and very well thought of. He was sitting at his kitchen table one morning enjoying breakfast and reading the newspaper. He opened up the newspaper to the obituary section, and lo and behold, he was reading his own obituary. You see, the day before, there had been an explosion at one of his chemical plants, and one of his brothers was killed. But the newspaper incorrectly ran Alfred's obituary. So there he was, sitting at his table, reading his own obituary. He found great amusement in that until he read what they had to write. And here's what they said: "The merchant of death is dead. Dr. Alfred Nobel, who became rich by finding ways to kill more people faster than ever before, died yesterday." You see, of all of the things that Dr. Nobel had done over his lifetime as a chemical engineer, creating dynamite was his number one. In addition to creating dynamite, he had created many ways to create explosives that could help in war. And as a result, many of his weapons were used to kill a lot of people in war. But you can imagine the angst that he felt as he read this obituary, because he realized, I've had value in this life. I've been a good businessman. I've been a philanthropist. I've done all these wonderful things, including these wonderful inventions. He has 355 patents to his name. He, by all standards, is highly successful. But he was going to be remembered as the merchant of death. You can imagine the horror that he must have felt that day when he realized that that's how he was going to be remembered. It's been said that it was because of the horror that he felt that day that he made the decision to donate the vast majority of his wealth to create the Nobel Foundation, an organization that recognizes efforts around the world today that we know it as the Nobel Peace Prize. You see, today he is not known as the merchant of death. He is known as the humanitarian that he was. He had the opportunity to adjust that in his life because he read his own obituary. My question to you today is this: if you had the opportunity to read your own obituary prior to your death, would it change how you live? Would it change where you spend your time and your talent and your treasure? Would it give you a different motivation to have a different impact in this world? Because you see, how you live matters. The decisions that you make matter. How you spend your time and your talent and your treasure matters. You see, it all ties in to your legacy. Dr. Nobel had an opportunity to change what people thought about his legacy, and you have that opportunity starting today, if it's not where you would want it to be. You see, we're all in the process of creating a legacy. It's either good or it's bad. That's the exciting thing about a legacy. We're all creating one. What is the legacy you're creating, and is it the one that you want? You see, a lot of people think legacy is what people think about them. You know, I hope when I die, I hope people think that and say that I was a nice person. I hope they say, you know, that Clint fella, he's pretty generous with his time, his talent, and his treasure to those in need. He was a caring and a compassionate person. I hope they say those nice things about me. That would be nice. But that's not what legacy is. You see, this is what I've learned about legacy. Your legacy isn't what people say about you when you're gone. Your legacy is how you live on in the lives of others because of the example you have set. It's not what they say. It's the fact that somebody's doing something different for having known you. You see, there are some people in this room today who will live a life of caring and love and respect because of an example set by a lady named Mo Anderson. There are some people sitting in this room that are going to have an enthusiasm and an energy for their business because of an example set by a lady named Kay Evans. The people in this organization who have set an example of how each and every one of you can begin living your lives every day is endless. The question is, are you doing that? You see, the reality is we all have an opportunity to create that legacy starting today. I want to share with you a couple of thoughts as to how I think you can go about creating that legacy in your day-to-day lives. I could talk about this for hours, but I got a call and said, you have 25 minutes. My wife said, I don't think you can do it. I said, I'll prove you wrong. She said, I still don't think you can do it. You can't introduce yourself in 25 minutes. How are you going to talk to people for 25 minutes? So I said, you know what? I accept the challenge. And so I want to share a couple of things with you here today. The first one is that I think we need to stay focused on what matters. There's a lot of crud going on in the world right now, isn't there? All we have to do is open up a newspaper and we'll see all of the crud. All we have to do is turn on the news and we'll hear about all of the crud. The reality is the crud's not going away. But part of your legacy can be that person that stays focused on what matters. Because there's going to be constantly someone telling us that there's something else that deserves our attention. Part of your legacy can be focusing on what matters. And I know that's not easy. I'll give you an example. I had an employee who worked for me several years ago who was extremely negative. I mean, this woman was foul. This woman wore her negativity like a badge of honor. She'd walk into the office on any given day and look you dead in the eye and say, you'll never find anybody more negative than me. She was proud of it. They didn't have belts for negativity, but if they did, I'm certain she'd have had a black belt. I mean, she was at the top of her negativity game. In fact, she's the kind of person they ask to leave the bar at 5 o'clock so they can start happy hour. You probably know the type of person I'm talking about. I mean, this woman was foul. She was always in a bad mood. She was always negative. She came running into the office one day. She was 20 minutes late for work. I heard her come busting through the door. I was sitting there at my desk. Over in the corner, I had one of those little round conference tables. She comes running through the desk with this great big stack of school books in her hands for some reason. She comes running through the office with this foul look on her face. She comes running past my desk. She slams the school books down on the table. She flops down in the chair and gives me this great big belly sigh and glares at me like I did something to screw up her day. Now, you have to understand something about me. I am not the type of person who will typically ask somebody that I know, how you doing? Quite frankly, in this negative world, I'm afraid they'll tell me. You think about it. You walk up to somebody you see every single day, you look them dead in the eye and say, good morning, how are you? And they look at you and say, oh, you hadn't heard? I thought everybody had heard by now. And then they proceed to tell you all the crud that's going on in their life. And you're thinking, I didn't even want to know this. I was just trying to get to the coffee pot. And now I have to sit and listen to all this. Yes, you do. Because you know what you did? You asked the wrong question. You asked them how, if you get nothing else from my program today, get this. If you don't want to know how somebody is doing, don't ask. But we do it. And then we allow that to become a part of our surroundings. I realized long ago if I wanted to enhance the way I communicated with others, if I wanted to take the level of the discourse to another level, I would have to find a way to have a better greeting than how are you doing? And I realized at one point it was right under my nose when I made the change from asking somebody how they were doing to this one simple phrase, and that simple phrase is this: tell me something good. I will walk right up to somebody I see every single day and I will throw out my hand and say, tell me something good. And you would be amazed how that one simple phrase can change the culture of that conversation. You would be amazed how that one simple phrase can change the culture of an entire organization. If you say to the people around you, we're going to focus on what works well. This is not about rose-colored glasses thinking. This is not about ignoring your challenges. This isn't some motivational gimmick. This is about truly saying we're going to focus first on what we do well. It can be a part of your personal legacy that says, I want to deal with our challenges, and I'm going to get good at dealing with our challenges. But one of the ways we're going to deal with that is we're going to recognize and appreciate and focus on what works well first. This employee comes running into my office. She's got this great big stack of school books in her hand. She comes running past my desk. She slams the school books down on the table. She flops down in the chair and gives me that great big belly sigh and glares at me. I wheeled around in my chair. I put a great big smile on my face and said, "Tell me something good." She said, "Oh, shut up." She said, "There ain't nothing good." I said, "Nothing?" She said, "Nothing." She said, "My husband and I got in a fight last night. The electricity at our house went off, so my alarm didn't go off this morning, so I was running around late because I got up late. And now my husband would normally take our daughter to daycare, but on this particular day, since we had been in a fight the night before, he was being his little knucklehead self like he normally is when we're in a fight, and he decides to not take our daughter to daycare. So here I am running around late trying to get myself ready for work. Now I have to stop and get my daughter ready for daycare. I finally get her ready. I finally get myself ready. I get her scooped up, put in the car. We race off to the daycare. Right out in front of the daycare is a great big wreck. Now I don't know how people get in a wreck going 20 miles an hour, but apparently they do. So I have to sit and wait for them to move the wreck out of the way. They finally get the wreck moved out of the way. I finally get my daughter dropped off at daycare. I finally make my way in here into the office. I'm 20 minutes late for work, and the first thing I have to look at is you looking at me saying, "Tell me something good." She said, "There ain't nothing good." I said, "Wow." I said, "All that bad stuff happened to you just this morning?" She said, "Yes, it did, and I have a question for you. Why is it that all the bad stuff in the world seems to happen to me, and none of it ever seems to happen to you?" Do you know some people like that? Go through life thinking that all the bad stuff happens to them and that it's sunshine and puppy dogs for everybody else around them. No one else ever has a challenge. Yeah, she was one of those. A little black cloud followed her everywhere she went. I looked at her and I said, "Now, why would you think that I never show up to work in a bad mood? I mean, what makes you think that?" She said, "Because you don't. You never show up in a bad mood. You always show up with tell me something good nonsense." She said, "Clint, quite frankly, not showing up to work in a bad mood every now and then is not normal. Everybody shows up to work in a bad mood every now and then." I said, "I'm just here to tell you, I can think of 12 good reasons why I should be in a good mood before I ever even get to work." I said, "Number one, I wake up." Small detail. Vital to starting a good day. Never started a good day without that one little detail. I wake up, I hear my alarm go off, so I know I still have the gift of hearing. I look around the room with two good eyes, so I know I still have the gift of sight. I get up out of a warm bed. I get up onto two good healthy legs. I walk into a warm shower. I get out. I put on clean clothes. I go into a kitchen and eat a good breakfast. I leave a house with a roof over the top. I get into a truck that I own, and I drive safely to a job that pays me to do what I love to do for a living. I said, "Now how can I show up here in a bad mood?" I said, "And it doesn't mean that all the crud that happened to you didn't happen to me." I said, "We live on the same side of town, so if your electricity went out, there's a good chance mine went out, which means I was running around late, probably burned my toast, had some moron pull out in front of me on the way to work. All of those tragedies that happened to you, they all happened to me too. The difference, I focused on what matters. Every day, things are going to happen. If I raced out of this room right now and I got to the person who knows you best, and I asked them, when life happens, where's your focus? Are you focused on all the things that worked, or are you wallowing around in all the things that didn't? It's a choice that you get to make every day. And quite frankly, it is a defining moment for your personal legacy. You see, Keller Williams has such an awesome legacy, and a huge part of that is the culture, and you as cultural ambassadors, you're a giant part of that. But here's what I know. The organization's not made up of good people, or good employees, or good agents, or good folks who are contributing to the organization. The organization is made up of good people. I've had the privilege. Go ahead, you can clap. There's only one of them, but you can clap. Yeah, because you're clapping for yourself. That's what it's all about. You start out with good material because you're already showing up as a good person. And once you've done that and you have become what this culture of Keller Williams is, you have that opportunity every day with how you focus or where you focus your efforts. You want to be a better person building your legacy? Stay focused on what matters.